DVassist acknowledges the traditional custodians throughout Western Australia and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of Aboriginal communities and their cultures, and to the elders both past and present. This webinar was recorded on Whadjuk Noongar land. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for our third webinar with the Women's Legal Service. So here I have Anna Farrant, who is the Deputy Principal Legal Officer for Women's Legal Service of WA. Welcome, Anna.
Hi, thanks so much for chatting with me today.
So great to have you. So how about we just get straight into it and ask the first question. So Anna, just tell us a little bit about your organisation and your role.
So Women's Legal Service WA is West Australia's only legal service specifically for women. We're based in Hay Street in the city in Perth, but we are a statewide service, so we do assist women across the state, in the regions, in the city, wherever they may be. We have four main areas of practice where we assist women for legal issues that we can help with. The first being family law, so post-separation, mostly parenting issues. Family violence restraining orders is the second area. The third area is protection and care or child protection matters. And the fourth is criminal injuries compensation, so claims that people can make after they've been a victim of a violent crime. We have a number of fabulous lawyers in our service. We also have access to an in-house financial counsellor who provides some support for women experiencing debt and financial hardship. And we also have some fabulous client support workers who help us make social support referrals to support the clients that we're working with.
Wonderful. What I'm really hearing there is that anyone living in WA, no matter how remote they are, they can actually pick up the phone and get some legal support in those four areas. So that's great. So today is really a focus on family and domestic violence. So how you've touched on four of the main areas, but in terms of someone who's experiencing family and domestic violence, how does the service support them if they're living in a regional town? How does that look?
So unfortunately, an overwhelming majority of our clients have or are experiencing family domestic violence. And that's overwhelmingly the reason why people seek us out for support. Of course, there are lots of different ways that can look for women. And there's also lots of different, places that women are living that contact us from. So if we're talking particularly about women living in the regions, we really try and work closely with local service providers, whether they're family violence support workers, sometimes police family violence units, whether they're counsellors, court support staff, to firstly connect women to our service and help facilitate that contact if needed, but also so that we're kind of keyed into the supports available on the ground in each region, because there's a huge variety of communities and, Western Australia being so big, that we know our best partners in supporting women outside the metro area is really through the services that live on the ground in those towns. So we really do try and make sure we're connected in, particularly with those services that operate for women in crisis, so refuges, counselling, and as I said, sometimes police or other first responders.
That's excellent. Really, really excellent. It's working within the existing systems and services and how you can best support that client locally. Now, with your service, is it a one-off session or can they get ongoing support in family and domestic violence?
So we really understand that the legal issues that can be related to experiencing family domestic violence can really vary. So often women may contact us for assistance with a specific legal issue, such as child protection becoming involved in their family due to family domestic violence, but they're not necessarily needing assistance with a restraining order at that moment. It's more the legal issues that come out of experiencing that violence. So a lot of our clients do have several legal issues that come out of that experience. We offer a sort of a bit of a triage service. So we offer a phone advice line that runs Tuesdays and Thursdays, which anyone can call in and get that initial hit of advice, that first point of call, particularly if people are just leaving their partners or have recently left a relationship and need some guidance about next steps for children or for their own sort of safety. So they're often sort of the shorter appointments that just allow women to get that point of direction of where they should go first and what their next steps might be. We also do offer longer appointments as well, which can occur by phone, via Teams or online, or in person if people are in the metro area and come into our office. And they're often just those longer appointments where there may be more complex issues, or there may be barriers around language and interpreters are required, or various other cultural reasons why it might be more appropriate to have a longer period of time to really give in-depth advice.
Right.
So for some women, that's enough. Some women just need that first kind of signpost of their rights, their obligations, but also their next steps and their ensuring their safety. Excuse me. Whereas other women will have ongoing need in terms of assistance with court processes, again, whether that's in a magistrate's court for restraining orders, the children's court for child protection involvement, or the family court for family law matters. We assess whether or not that particular woman is eligible for our assistance. That looks at a range of factors, including whether or not there's an appropriate service on the ground in her community that she would prefer to access. We make sure we give women that option, so that if they do prefer to have in-person contact and have a lawyer in their community, that we facilitate that referral. Other women, whether they're in the regions or in the city, don't feel comfortable or are not able to access a legal service in their immediate area. And that can be for a number of reasons, whether that's conflicts of interest developing in smaller communities, or sometimes feeling shame or feeling anxiety about walking into a building that has legal service written across the top if you're in a small town. So where there are ongoing legal issues that are within our purview, where there's not a more appropriate referral for that person, and also looking at things like the client's means. If they do have capacity to pay for a service, as we are a free legal service, then we'll assist with referrals to private lawyers. But where there's not that sort of means, and where there are multiple vulnerabilities, excuse me, whether that's linguistic or literacy barriers, women who are from the culturally and linguistically diverse community, where there may be a risk of homelessness, and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community women, we do look at the range of vulnerabilities that women experience, and where there's a particular vulnerability, and ongoing legal issues, we can also take matters on and represent clients in court.
Right.
So it's something that we assess. We triage as matters come in, but where there is that vulnerability, there's no means and no option to receive assistance in their own community, or they prefer not to, then we can assess whether or not we can act ongoing.
That's really great. To really just summarise that, it really sounds like anyone experiencing family domestic violence throughout WA can phone the service and get triaged accordingly. It's kind of, if you need that initial advice, that's the Tuesday and Thursday, or the longer appointment available. But then, of course, you go through that, who needs that, and then can represent accordingly. So, and also that you're referring to other services, which is going to best suit their situation. But what I'm hearing is that it's free. It's free from the start to the end, which is a really great to make it more accessible for those that are needing it.
Yeah. There are some instances where, for example, there may be fees associated with filing documents in courts or obtaining certain reports that can come up sometimes in certain types of matters. And so we always make sure clients are aware of that, and that they are prepared for any costs that may come up, because we unfortunately can't fund those, but they certainly don't come up in every matter. And our service itself doesn't charge for any of our services that we provide. We do also, make sure that we're looking always at the capacity of our organisation. So if we're committed to providing the best service we can to women, which means that sometimes we need to keep an eye on how many people we're helping to make sure that we're giving the best possible service to the women who we're assisting ongoing. But those are, it's really just looking at the need of that particular woman, her means of obtaining assistance elsewhere, and then fitting her with the best support, whether that's with us or whether that's referrals that can be made.
Excellent, excellent. And so let's jump over to the next question now. Is when someone's experiencing family domestic violence, it can be really challenging to make that first call. Where to start? How do I and who do I contact? So how does your service help to relieve some of that fear that can come with making that call?
I think we try and be as flexible as needed for the women who are accessing the service. We certainly, when a woman does make that really brave first step to make contact, our front of house staff will run through a series of questions with her, firstly immediately making sure that she's safe on the phone at that moment, and always prioritising safety before we get to the advice giving part. Our intake process also involves just making sure that she's got autonomy over her own devices, to make sure that the fact she's making the call or receiving emails or texts will be private and will be safe to receive. We also ask questions around the immediacy, the urgency of the matter. If it is something that involves really urgent legal proceedings, or there's an issue that just can't wait for an appointment, triaging those and getting either that support from us immediately, or if we're not able to assist at the time that it's needed, making sure they're referred efficiently and appropriately. So with those relationships with other service providers across the state, we're able to refer women very efficiently and quickly. I think the other thing that's important for women to know about our service is that we operate a trauma-informed service. So that's everybody from our admin staff to our lawyers and everybody who works with our service. So there's and it is very sadly, an extremely common experience that we hear from our clients living with the impact of that violence. So there's never any judgment from our lawyers. There's never any question that the experience that is being explained to us or is being discussed is real, is incredibly impactful on people, on children, on families, and also that there are options that are available. So that's why we try and fit the scale of the service to the person who comes to our service, because some people need a huge amount of legal support, and some people really just need to know straight away that they've got options. These are the options that you have, and you actually have perhaps more control and power in the situation than you may feel at the time that you make that call. And sometimes that's really the most important thing for women to hear.
Yeah, I can imagine. And just from what you're really saying there, it's really just tailoring it to what they need in that moment. But I can really see there's a lot of thought that's gone into how the person, when they call, how information is provided, what's considered from that safety lens, even from the front desk all the way through. I think that's, relieve some of the fear and anxiety that can come up with what's going to happen and how that process is. So you've really walked me through the service. So when someone calls, they'll speak to the reception, front of house, run through some questions, and then be allocated to triage and go from there.
Yeah, and I think it's also important for everyone to really understand that every single person who rings our service feels that their matter is really urgent, and that's completely reasonable, because it's to do with firstly their safety, but also their children and their family. And that we really endeavour to be as accessible and as responsive as we possibly can. But that if you are given an appointment, and you think it's a few weeks away, not to ever feel that that's because you've been assessed as not important or not urgent. We understand how incredibly stressful and emotionally challenging that period of time can be.
Yes.
So just to make sure that, that's always at the forefront of our minds when we're working with women, and that we really will do our absolute best to respond in the way that's necessary and appropriate for her.
Yeah, I can really hear that. Okay, so you kind of walk through how someone might experience the service, but what might a first appointment look like with a lawyer? Let's say, yeah, they experience the Tuesday or Thursday or a longer appointment. Is there anything that I have to bring or anything at all what could that look like a little bit?
So it depends a little bit on the type of matter that they're coming to us with. As I said, our front of house staff are really skilled at assessing which matters will go first of all to the phone line, or will be booked in for an appointment as that initial advice. Certainly, if a client is sent to the phone line first, and then the phone line, who's lawyers who operate the phone line assess that this actually is perhaps more complex than it appeared at first, and it does require a longer appointment, then she will also receive a longer appointment. So it's really just about getting the information that women need to them as quickly and efficiently as possible. In terms of those longer appointments, the most helpful thing for us as lawyers, obviously, is if you have any paperwork, any court documents, any restraining order documents, any paperwork you've received from the Department of Communities and Child Protection, or any existing court paperwork from the family court. That's one of the most important things to bring, so that we can get up to speed really quickly with where things are at and give the advice as appropriate based on that. As I said, we do have different options for how people want to engage with the appointment process, whether that's on the phone, assuming that it is, we're checking that it is safe to do so first. If there are particular times of the day that the client knows she is safe to call because, for example, the perpetrator may be at work or not around at that time, she can request an appointment at a specific time that's going to be safe for her. We also, our office is wheelchair accessible, and there is, we have, facilities and things like that absolutely allow, as they always should, for people who use wheelchairs to access the office. And we also do have access to phone or on-site interpreters for people who might need some support to receive the advice and to tell their story. So that's sort of, again, those appointments can really be structured in a way that's going to best get the information to us as lawyers and then the advice to the client.
And you said over the phone is available and in person. Is there Zoom or kind of Teams appointments that are available for people?
Yeah, if people prefer to do things by Team or Zoom, then that's absolutely fine. That can be arranged very easily. The link can just be sent to the client via email or text so that they can access the link at the time of the appointment.
Great. That just shows that, yeah, it can really be at their needs and in an environment that is safe for them, and that's particularly relevant for people living in regional, rural and remote WA. You've touched on a little bit about how the service supports people with a disability and also with how the service supports people from multicultural backgrounds. Is there anything further to add to that?
Certainly our experience as practitioners and providing this service for as long as we have now is that we know that family violence is an element that exists in every community and every corner of every community. So we always take people as they are. We have staff who have, many different cultural, social, religious backgrounds as well. And it's something that we're always doing our best to increase our knowledge of the many, many different communities that exist in Western Australia, whether they be, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, which of course across Western Australia are so beautifully diverse, whether that be, the many different women who come to Australia from overseas, to make sure that we're being as culturally safe and sensitive as possible. And we also really welcome feedback if there's any learning that we can get from particular interactions to make sure that any woman who comes to our service can be supported. And I should also say as well that our service will support and work with anyone who identifies as a woman, and certainly any member of the LGBTQI community who identifies as a woman, and that's absolutely respected and supported by our service as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you touched on supporting people who identify as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. Is there any further points there? I know you support another service. You offer another service but it's only for metro clients, is that right?
Yeah, so our service works, we're hugely wonderfully supported by a lot of particularly Noongar community organisations within the metro area. We have a lot of really good relationships, and we do receive a lot of referrals to assist with Aboriginal women. But we have clients from all over Western Australia, and so we're always striving to make sure our cultural knowledge and again, able to provide a culturally sensitive and responsive space. And that can include things, that sometimes may, to people who, Wajula like me, or who don't have knowledge of some particular cultural needs. It can be small things like if somebody doesn't want to give the name of the other party because there are cultural reasons why that person may have passed away, and there are cultural reasons why they can't speak that person's name. Flagging that's absolutely fine. That's flagged with our intake staff, our admin, and just being really making sure that people aren't being put in a culturally compromising or unsafe environment the minute that they walk through the door and are trying to access help.
Again, this just really highlights how you really work within what the client needs and what's most appropriate, and working alongside them and adapting the service and how we do things appropriately. Great. Okay, so how can someone get in touch with your service?
So the first point of call that a lot of women contact us through is either through our reception phone number, which is on the website. It's 92728800. And that can be the first place that people come to, just to find out if their issue is something that we can assist with, and then be diverted either to the phone service or to the appointments roster. Excuse me. We also run a duty lawyer service at the Perth Children's Court Monday to Thursday. So we always have a lawyer on site on those 4 days for women who are coming to the Children's Court for child protection cases who don't have a representative. And you just attend court and ask to see one of our lawyers. So that's important that we're on site, and we maintain that presence throughout COVID as well. So there's always somebody there. Right. We also, sometimes if women are working with perhaps a counsellor or a victim support worker, they can assist in getting in touch with us. There is a referral form on our website that a lot of the service providers use to email through to our reception. And we then pick up those referrals and, again, triage and organise whatever next steps need to be taken for that client. Some people just turn up at the office. So we do have a lovely office. It's got a foyer with things for kids to draw, things like that. The only issue with coming in without an appointment is that it would be a shame if you came on a day that all of our lawyers were off at court and we weren't able to provide you the advice on the day. But sometimes people are just stopping through Perth and they make contact by walking in and book an appointment at reception at the front desk.
Excellent, many options. So that finishes the webinar for now. Thank you so much for your time and what you do at the Women's Legal Service WA.
No problem. Thanks very much.